What's good, family? You back with Grown Man Boys, the best hip-hop show for adults in America, where a gallon of milk costs $400. While you're here, pretend like the like and subscribe buttons hit you with a beer at the Palace at Auburn Hills. You know what to do. We're also live everywhere you get your podcast, so check us out on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, and every other place that has podcasts. I'm your man, Can't Get Right, and with me is a man so tough, he doesn't breathe. He holds air hostage. B.A., what's buzzing, cousin?
What up, family?
That's what's good. Tonight, we're going to talk about iconic moments from the 90s. I'm going to start this one with a person who had a moment.
Okay.
Canibus. I don't think these kids know. I don't think these kids know about Canibus when he came out. When Canibus was coming out, his features, he was featured and just destroyed absolutely every song he was on. He destroyed it so much, they would let him go way more than 16 bars if he wanted to. They did not care. They were like, Canibus, just go. Now, his career came to an unfortunate end, but there for a while, when he broke into hip hop, the anticipation that built for that first album, I don't remember a whole lot of rappers around that time being able to build that kind of anticipation. Now, it ultimately didn't end up being what I think most of us wanted it to be, but still, he had his moment. I think he had his moment to where, like, everything he was doing, the Wake Up Show, all of those features, the one with the Lost Boys, Beast from the East, like, he was just crushing songs everywhere, and up until 4321, his career was on a straight line to the top, and then he just kind of ran into something. Some of those things you just gotta let them go. But yeah, that was what
Mayday, SOS, yeah. Mayday.
Pilot to co-pilot, we are going down.
We're going Houston. We have a problem.
He ran into a juggernaut. He ran into a buzzsaw, but he did have a moment. I thought it was an iconic moment because that was when lyricism was really reaching its height, and Canibus was a guy who was just ahead of his time a little bit. And you know, he was a little bit ahead of his time, and it was so fun listening. You would like, oh, he's got a feature on this. I gotta hear this. I gotta hear this.
Yeah, be excited.
And his lines they were all battle lines, and that's what ended up ultimately kind of being his downfall, was the inability to write songs people like. But those bars were so hard, man. Canibus had his moment. He needs his shout out for that moment only, really. But, you know, everything after that, you know, kind of ended up the way it ended up. But, I mean, it ended up with him battling disaster reading out of his notebook.
That's the effect of Just Say No, Kids. You know, we would like to say RIP to Canibus as a rapper, not because he really died, but his career was marked by Jack the Ripper. So there's that.
All right, so what other iconic moments did you come up from 90s rap?
Since we were mentioning people's careers getting murdered, I had one thought. But I'm going to go a different way. I want to talk about an era inside of an era that was probably the most iconic that I can think of in the 90s. A little era called Death Row Records. Let's talk about it. When Death Row hit the scene, it wasn't a gradual startup label like some may think. You have to understand, Death Row's first two albums were multi-platinum single, The Chronic and Doggy Style were your Hello, We're a Label. Hello, We're a Label.
And from our 64 tournament, that was a number 1 seed and a number 3 seed.
By the way, we have arguably one of the greatest producers in hip-hop, and at the time, definitely one of the greatest up-and-coming lyricists in hip-hop. Oh, and as a caveat,
as a bonus, the guy
nugget
who would become the most famous rapper in the world.
As a nugget, we stumble upon an artist due to an opportunity in 1994 or 1993 that allowed us to have Tupac Shakur.
That's like the Dodgers trading for Shohei.
You know what I'm saying? So here's what I mean by the reason why this was such an era. I mean, just such a big thing in hip hop. Tupac, one of the most polarizing figures in hip hop. Dr. Dre, polarizing figure in hip hop. Suge Knight, polarizing figure in hip hop. Snoop Dogg, polarizing figure in the world as we know it today, currently. But who was the unsung hero on death row? I'll tell you, the platinum hook artist himself, Nate Dogg. Arguably, if Nate Dogg was on a hook, it was platinum for you, and you're welcome.
Nate Dogg on a song was just too much. He had an era.
Smoke weed every day. So many.
All right,
so many.
since you got a moment that is the birth of something, I got a moment that wasn't necessarily the birth of something, but it was a moment that announced that birth had already happened. The South got something to say.
Healthy.
When Dre said that we in the South already knew that Southern rap was dope, we already knew that we were catching up to everybody else. Like, we knew we were young. We knew we were a little bit younger. We got that, but we were catching up just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And we knew that. But when Dre went on there, for Dre of all people to say it, if Big Boy had said that, it wouldn't have meant as much to me, because Big Boy is the type of guy that he had probably said that.
Right.
He's probably said that 1,000 times. But Dre is not the kind of guy who would say that. And Dre was angry that night. And Dre is not an angry person when you see him most times.
He made a flute album.
Right, the flute album, B.
He made a flute album. Let's keep it there.
Right, Dre was not the kind of dude, but he was angry in that moment. The South got something to say. That's all I'm going to say. And he got booed for it. But I'll tell you, in the next 5 years, those New York rappers their A&R started reaching out to a lot of Southern rappers after that moment in the next 5 years. And a lot of sounds from up north started to change just a little bit.
I like what you did there. So I'm going to go different. I'm going to talk about a birth of not an era, but a rebirth of an artist with no more than a phrase with, "Oh man, I'm glad y'all said it all." Ice Cube leaving NWA.
Okay.
Not the feud. We're not even talking about the beef. We're talking about Ice Cube as a solo artist. 1992, Ice Cube as a solo artist. He did his thing. He went to New York, got all the production for America KKK. Like, it was great. And then people had something to say about how he did his thing. So this is where I say the second album was the rebirth of Ice Cube. Because I believe the Ice Cube we got from Death Certificate on is the real Ice Cube. I believe Ice Cube's first album was Ice Cube from NWA making music like he would have made it in NWA, but without NWA. I believe Death Certificate was Ice Cube, 1,000%. And I believe No Vaseline, unlike a lot of diss tracks, it wasn't in the vault. It wasn't something that was meant for somebody else. It was personal. And based on that personalness, we got what we got.
Yeah, and it's also, like you say, the sophomore album is generally your make or break album.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're gonna give you all the resources on that first album, and you're hungrier than you're ever gonna be.
Yeah.
That second album, you got to show us that you can still do what you did, but change it up enough to keep us interested. And he became a completely different person. He became something that lasted another 30 years.
And yes, Death Certificate is the sophomore album. Jackin' for Beats was an EP. It don't count. I said what I said.
That was the absolute truth. And that's all we got for you, man. I hope you enjoyed those iconic moments from the 90s. If you got any that you remember, throw them down in the comments. Let's hear them. I love to relive those 90s memories. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And for my man, BA, I'm Can't Get Right, and we out.